The ocean lay beyond the glass like a calm blue secret, and the Sterling estate caught every bit of morning light. Marble floors glowed. Tall windows watched the water. People moved like they were part of the house, quiet, sure, polished. Maria Alvarez moved among them with a cart and a soft hum, sleeves rolled, hair pinned back, eyes kind and sharp at the same time. She wiped a railing until it shone and glanced toward the kitchen door, where her daughter waited with a notebook pressed to her chest. "Homework before dusting," Maria whispered, nudging the notebook back up into Isabella's hands. "I finished the calculus," Isabella said, smiling. "I'm writing code now." "Code can wait," Maria replied, then softened. 5 more minutes. Then stairs. Isabella sat at the corner of the long kitchen table and opened her old laptop. The screen had a hairline crack, and the letter E stuck if she pressed too hard. She typed gently, eyes bright, lips moving like she was explaining the logic to the air. A few chefs peeked over her shoulder. One nodded, impressed. The other smiled the way adults do when they see a child doing something hard and loving it. Upstairs, a planner in a pearl necklace floated through the hall, ticking boxes under her breath. Place cards in the dining room, floral arch by noon, piano tuned. String quartet at 2. She flicked her eyes over Maria and Isabella and kept walking. By afternoon, the place had changed into a scene from a glossy magazine. White tents breathed on the lawn. A chandelier the size of a car threw crystals across the ceiling. The charity gala had a name long enough to crowd a brochure and a guest list even longer. Cars rolled up the drive and gave off people whose shoes did not understand rain. A hostess laughed at something a donor said and waved a thin wrist that flashed with diamonds. Maria watched the flow for a moment and then adjusted a tray of glasses. "Stay out of the way," she whispered to Isabella, who had traded her laptop for a damp cloth and a quiet focus. Eyes up, shoulders back. "No apologies?" "Si, Mama," Isabella said. She looked out at the room and took it in like she always did, with curiosity first and caution second. Jonathan Sterling appeared at the top of the stairs like a headline stepped into real life. He was tall, silver at the temples, smile measured. People turned toward him as if pulled. He moved through the clusters and made each person feel like the only one in the room. "You made this happen," donors told him. "No, we did," he said kindly, and they loved him for the answer. Near the piano, a socialite in a fitted white dress spun slowly like she needed everyone to see the back. She sipped and sighed, and let an earring catch the light the way a story catches an ear. When she turned, Isabella, hugging the wall with a stack of folded napkins, stepped sideways to let her pass. The napkins shifted. One slipped. Their shoulders brushed. "Oh," the woman said, hand to her chest like something terrible had happened. "The help brings their children now?" She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her friend looked over, smiling thinly, as if this were the line they'd been waiting for. Heat jumped to Isabella's face but stopped there. She bent quickly, righted the napkins, and said, "Excuse me." She moved away, careful, quiet, and found the shadow of a tall plant where she could breathe. Maria saw it. Of course she did. Her hand tightened around the tray. When she passed her daughter a moment later, she did not say, "Estás bien?" She did not say, "Don't let them." She just reached and smoothed a loose curl from Isabella's forehead and kept walking. Work had to be done. From across the room, Jonathan Sterling had watched the small collision. He had seen the flinch, the recovery, the way dignity had put itself between a girl and a cruel sentence. He did nothing in that moment, spoke to a senator, checked a list, nodded at the pianist, but a thought had begun to write itself inside him, small and stubborn. Isabella stood near the French doors and watched the ocean. The lawn seemed to run straight into the water without a fence between their blue and green. She felt like a fence. The laughter in the room came and went like waves. Servers flowed around the crowd with trays of tiny food. She could name every person in her mother's world, every neighbor who'd helped when the rent jumped, every teacher who had stayed late to get her to the next idea. She couldn't name one person in this room who knew her name. "They don't even know I exist," she said when Maria passed again. Maria glanced at the gold light on the glasses in her hand, then at her daughter's face. "Then one day, Mia," she said softly, "make them wish they did." "Doing what?" Isabella asked, the word out before she could hide it. Being you, Maria said, loud or quiet. But you. The quartet started a song everyone recognized and pretended not to love. People touched elbows and murmured numbers that did not fit inside wallets. A man in a blue suit asked for another whiskey like the first one had done nothing for him. A woman with perfect hair tilted her head and said, "You should meet my husband. He's in tech too," and then forgot the person's name before she could finish the sentence. When the speeches began, Isabella yielded to the wall behind a palm and opened her laptop. The event Wi-Fi was locked, but she'd saved a framework she wanted to test, a small app that would take voice notes in 2 languages and keep the meaning right when the words moved. She wrote in a loop for error handling and smiled at the way the code sang to her when it finally clicked. She didn't notice the footsteps until they stopped. "That's not schoolwork," a voice said lightly. She looked up fast. Jonathan Sterling stood there, drink in hand, head tilted, eyes curious, not cruel. She shut the laptop halfway on reflex. Sorry. I'm just helping tonight." "You were helping a program compile," he said. "What is it?" "A note-taker," she said, heartbeat steadying. "Bilingual. For moms who leave messages and want the doctor to hear them right. For people like us," she caught herself. "I mean people." He smiled, a real smile this time. "I knew what you meant." He nodded at the laptop. "Show me." For a second, she thought of the socialite's words and almost said no. But her mother's voice lived closer. She opened the laptop and clicked the demo. The app took a sentence in Spanish about a fever that wouldn't break and turned it into simple, clear English, without losing the worry in the voice. She reversed it. It worked both ways. Jonathan watched and did not interrupt. "How long did this take you?" he asked finally. "A month," she said. "But I've been thinking about it for a year. What's your name?" "Isabella Alvarez. You're Maria's daughter," he said, like he had put 2 important pieces together. "She's the only person who can make this house tell the truth about itself." He watched the app translate one more clinical phrase into a mother's words. "Come see me tomorrow," he said. "Sterling Innovations. 10 o'clock, her throat tightened. "For what?" "For a conversation," he said. "About your work. Bring your code." He paused, searching her face. "And your mother." He walked away like he hadn't just moved a wall. When the last glass was washed and the last light dimmed, the house sighed. The ocean held its dark line and the lawn held dew. Maria and Isabella waited by the staff exit with their tote bags and aching feet. Maria held a paper envelope with her name in tidy print. She didn't open it. She looked at her daughter instead. "What did he want?" she asked. "He heard my app," Isabella said, still a little stunned. "He told me to come tomorrow. To talk about a job, or something." Maria searched her daughter's eyes for fear, for doubt, for the tiny wound that always follows an insult. She found all of it and something else, something new and tall. "We'll go," she said. "We'll go in our best clothes and our truest words." Isabella nodded. She tucked the old laptop under her arm like a book you take everywhere because it knows your hands. "Mama," she said softly, "if I get this, things could change." "Things change when you walk into them," Maria said. Not before. They stepped into the night. The ocean breathed. The estate lights went small behind them, little stars stuck in a big house. Isabella held the gate open and let her mother pass first. As it clicked shut, her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder she had set for herself and never used. Be seen. She smiled to no one and everyone at once. "Tomorrow," she said, and her voice didn't shake. "We make them look." Sterling Innovations sat 12 floors above the city, all glass and light and the soft, expensive quiet that comes from carpets too thick to complain. The receptionist smiled in a way that didn't reach her eyes. "Interview?" she asked, looking at Isabella's shoes before her face. "Meeting," Isabella answered, voice steady. "With Mr. Sterling." The woman's fingers paused over the keyboard, then fluttered faster. "Of course. Take the gold elevator." In the elevator's mirror, Maria smoothed her blouse and stood a little taller. "Eyes up," she whispered. "Eyes up," Isabella echoed, clutching her laptop. The doors opened on a lobby that looked like a science museum had learned manners. Screens floated on walls. A green wall grew real ivy in a perfect rectangle. People in badge lanyards moved with purpose, talking in a language of deadlines and ideas. Jonathan's assistant led them into an office that felt like the ocean had put on a suit. Windows framed the sky. A long table held nothing but a carafe of water and glasses as thin as thought. Jonathan stood when they entered. "Maria, Isabella, thank you for coming." Maria started to sit, then hesitated. "Sir, I'm on the clock later if we go too long." "We won't," Jonathan said with a small smile. "You've already given this place more hours than I can count." He turned to Isabella. "Show me your app." She opened the old laptop with the care of someone waking a baby. Her hands didn't shake. She ran through the demo, walked him through her code, and explained, without apology, what she'd built and why. When she finished, the office seemed to breathe out. "This is good," he said. "Not just clever, useful." He glanced at Maria. "You taught her to use both hands. One for the head, one for the heart. Her father taught her to be stubborn." Maria said softly. "I taught her to finish what she starts." Jonathan nodded. "We have a summer internship program," he said to Isabella. "It's competitive. We don't usually make exceptions." He paused. "We will for you. If you want it." Isabella looked at her mother and saw pride, fear, and a green light. "I want it," she said. "I want to earn it." "You will," he said. "Start Monday." Monday came. The office buzzed like a bright hive. Isabella wore a thrifted blazer her mother had ironed flat, and new notebook pages waited for a new life. Her team lead was a woman with sharp cheekbones and sharper heels. "Chloe Dane," she said, shaking hands. "We move fast here. Try to keep up." "I'm ready," Isabella said. Chloe's smile held a test. "We'll see." The first days were a blur of onboarding videos, passwords, and names that didn't stick yet. In the break room, other interns clustered in threes, laughing over inside jokes she hadn't had time to learn. "So you're the special pick," one said, sugar tucked under the sweet. "I'm the new intern," Isabella said. "Where'd you apply from?" Another asked. "Harvard? Stanford?" "From home," Isabella answered. "From a kitchen table." A boy with a loud laugh snorted. "Cute," Chloe called a stand-up. "Alvarez, you'll shadow the voice pipeline team," she said. "Meetings at 9, 2, and 4. Don't be late. Commit rights by Friday if you prove you can handle them." She didn't look up from her tablet. "Also, it's Chloe, not ma'am. We're all adults here." At 9, Isabella took a chair at the edge of a glass-walled room. She listened, wrote everything down, and spoke only when asked. When she did speak, brief notes on a latency spike and an idea to smooth it, Chloe repeated Isabella's point a minute later with different words and a nod from the room. "We'll test that," Chloe said. No one looked at Isabella. In the code review later, a senior intern leaned back. "Not bad for a fresh start," he said, searching for a word he wouldn't get in trouble for. "Just watch your variable names." "English helps." "They are in English," Isabella said, calm. "They're also descriptive," he shrugged. "Just saying." By Thursday, the edges showed. In the hall, 2 interns walked behind her. She only got in because of Sterling, one whispered. "He's trying to be a hero again." "Or optics," the other said. "Every company needs a story." She pretended not to hear and wrote more code than she had thought she could. At lunch, she sat by the window and video called her mother. "It's fine," she said, but her smile didn't quite fit. "Fine is what people say when they're not," Maria answered. "Do your work. Don't do theirs. I can do both. You should not have to." Maria softened. "Mia, the ocean looks nice on a postcard. It is also salt and pull. You know how to swim." On Friday, Maria stopped by the building to drop off homemade tamales, still warm in a foil packet. She waited in the lobby while Isabella came down. "I can't stay," Maria said, handing over joy wrapped in foil. A client added a dinner. "Eat with your team." "Thank you," Isabella said, taking the bag like it was woven from love. They hugged quick. Then the elevator doors opened and Chloe stepped out with a vendor, laughter bright and brittle. She saw the hug, the foil, the tenderness, and her face changed. "Next time, have your maid use the service entrance," Chloe said lightly, not bothering to lower her voice. The words sliced the air. A guard looked up. The receptionist looked away. Maria went very still. Isabella felt heat bloom under her skin. Not shame, but something worse. The need to choose between silence and losing her temper in a world hungry to see her lose it. "She is my mother," Isabella said, voice steady from somewhere deep. "She is not the help. She is my help. She is my hero." The vendor blinked, then found something on his watch that needed his attention. Chloe's smile did not change, but it moved to a different part of her face. "Keep emotions off the clock," she said. "We're professionals." They ate tamales at a desk by the window. No one in her team joined. One intern walked by and said, "Smells interesting," like an insult had put on a tie. Isabella chewed slowly, swallowed, and breathed. That night she went home and sat on the edge of her bed. The old laptop waited on the nightstand like a friend who didn't know how to fix anything, but would stay anyway. "Maybe I don't belong there," she said. Maria sat beside her and rested her hand on Isabella's back the way she had when fevers broke. "They cannot see your worth because your light hurts their eyes," she said. "They will call it glare, it is glow. Don't dim. I'm tired of fighting a test I didn't sign up for." "You didn't," Maria agreed. "But you were born ready." On Monday, the air felt thinner. Isabella's project folder was gone from the shared drive. In its place, Chloe presented a deck at the morning meeting. Isabella's idea, Isabella's architecture, Isabella's flow, but stamped with Chloe's name. "I refined our junior's concept," Chloe said, "and brought it across the finish line." The room nodded. Someone clapped. After the meeting, Isabella went straight to HR. "My work was stolen," she said, laying out timestamps, commits, comments. The HR rep smiled like a pillow. "Let's not make this personal," she said. "We'll review. You know how team credit works. Team credit includes the team," Isabella said, voice shaking now, not with fear but with held-back truth. "My name was erased." "We'll circle back," the rep said, eyes already on another screen. Isabella walked out and stared at the city until it doubled, then pulled itself together again. In the hall, Jonathan happened to pass. His schedule stacked, his phone lighting like a slot machine. He saw her face before he saw her badge. "Walk with me," he said, steering toward his office. Inside, he poured water into 2 glasses and let the silence be a chair they both could sit in. "What happened?" he asked. She told him everything without decoration. The lobby, the service entrance, the missing files, the meeting where her idea wore someone else's name. Her voice worked all the way through. It broke only when she said, "I have done everything right. I have bent without breaking. And somehow, I am always the one asked to prove I didn't imagine it." Jonathan listened, really listened, the way you do when you realize the story is not about you. He set the glass down and leaned on his elbows. "You've been carrying a weight I should have seen sooner," he said. "I can't erase yesterday," he paused. "But I can give you something today." She looked up, eyes rimmed but clear. "3 wishes," he said, half a smile but not a joke. "Not magic. Levers I can pull, doors I can open, protections I can make real. You name them, I honor them. You've earned that and more." She almost laughed. Then the laugh turned to something steadier. "I don't want special treatment, and you won't get it," he said. "You'll get fairness. Your wishes will not build a throne. They will level a floor." She thought of her mother in a lobby, of the word Maid pulled like a knife, of a folder that had been her home and then wasn't. The first wish came to her as fast as a breath and as old as a promise. "I want my mother," she said, "to never be treated like she's invisible again." Jonathan sat back. He had expected a raise, a title, a desk with a view. He hadn't expected a daughter's first wish. "Done," he said, and meant it. "You have my word and soon my policy." He waited. "What else?" She looked at her hands. They were steady now. "I'll think," she said. "I want to choose carefully." "Good," he said. "Careful choices move mountains." When she left his office, the hallway didn't feel kinder, but it felt wider. She rode the elevator down and stepped into the lobby where her mother sometimes waited. She touched the spot on her wrist where her pulse ran strong and whispered, "No more invisible." Upstairs, Chloe sent an email to communications with a subject line that tried to get ahead of a storm. In HR, a policy manual sat on a desk, its pages about to change. And in a part of the city where the ocean could not be seen but could be felt, Maria polished a glass and looked at the door as if she knew someone had just opened it from the other side. The next week began with sunlight and unease. The company's annual gala, an event meant to celebrate Sterling Innovation's achievements, was all anyone could talk about. Banners fluttered across the lobby, boasting words like diversity, innovation, and progress. Isabella walked through those glass doors, feeling how heavy those words became when no one truly meant them. Maria had been invited this time, not as a worker, but as a guest. A crisp envelope had arrived at their small apartment days earlier, sealed with gold trim, and signed by Jonathan Sterling himself. Inside was a single line, "For years of loyalty and grace, you deserve to be seen." When the night arrived, Maria wore a simple navy gown borrowed from a friend. Her hands trembled as she fastened a pair of earrings, the same ones she wore at her wedding. Isabella smiled as she zipped the back of the dress. "You look like someone who owns the place," she said. Maria chuckled softly. "I'll settle for looking like someone allowed in the front door." At the gala, the room glittered, chandeliers spilling light like water, tables lined with champagne and polished silver. The air smelled of perfume and money. For the first time, Maria walked through that room not carrying a tray, but holding a glass. People looked twice, confusion flickering across faces that had seen her before but never saw her. Jonathan spotted her from across the room and approached with that practiced charm. "Maria," he said warmly, "we're honored tonight." He gestured toward the stage. "I'd like to thank you publicly if you don't mind." She blinked, stunned. "Me? He smiled. "You've kept this place running smoother than any of our machines." When he took the stage, his words drew polite applause, but something about the moment made Isabella's stomach twist. As her mother stood beside him, applause filled the hall. Yet behind the clapping, she could hear whispers. "The maid? Is this some charity gesture? He's always trying to prove something." Maria kept her chin up, her eyes glistening. For the first time, she stood at the front, not the background. But when the lights dimmed, Isabella saw it clearly. Her mother had been elevated. Yes, but by someone else's permission, afterward. As guests mingled, a woman brushed past Isabella and murmured, "Well, it's nice of Mr. Sterling to include everyone. Gives the evening a human touch." The words were honey and venom together. Isabella smiled faintly but didn't reply. Later that night, she found her mother outside on the balcony overlooking the glowing city. Maria's hands rested on the rail, her face thoughtful. "You did this, Mia," she said quietly. "You made them see me," Isabella hesitated. "They saw you because he told them to, Mama." Maria looked at her daughter, the reflection of the city lights in her eyes. "Sometimes that's how the door opens," she said. "It doesn't matter who turns the handle. What matters is that we walk through." Isabella nodded, but the words settled heavy. Inside, laughter rang, sharp and careless. She looked back through the glass at people who'd spent their lives surrounded by power. People who'd clap for a maid one moment and mock her the next. Something inside her began to harden, not in bitterness but in resolve. The following week at work, the whispers started again. Different words, same tone. "Did you see her mother at the event?" "Talk about lucky breaks." Chloe's voice was the loudest, dripping with sarcasm. "I guess being connected helps," she said to a small circle of interns, not bothering to lower her voice when Isabella walked in. Isabella ignored it at first. But that afternoon she discovered something worse. Her code, her main project, Weeks of Work, had been altered and reposted under Chloe's name. Her files, her structure, even her comments were identical. Only the credit line had changed. When she confronted HR, they gave her the same corporate smile. "Team projects often get messy," the woman said. "Maybe you can discuss authorship privately with your supervisor." "I already did," Isabella said sharply. "And my supervisor's the one who stole it." The HR rep's eyes flickered, but her tone didn't change. "Let's not escalate this unnecessarily." Isabella walked out, fists trembling, throat tight. Her mother's face flashed in her mind, the way she'd stood on that stage, proud but small under those lights. They'd clapped for a performance, not for a person. That night, she sat alone on the apartment balcony, the hum of traffic below blending with the ache in her chest. Maria came out quietly, a mug of tea in her hand. "You've been quiet," she said. "I'm tired," Isabella whispered. "Not from working, from proving." Maria set the mug beside her. "They'll always make you prove," she said softly. "That's their way of keeping the door heavy. But every time you push it open, it gets lighter for the next girl." Isabella looked at her mother. It shouldn't take this much just to be seen. No, Maria said, but until it doesn't, we show them anyway. The next morning, Jonathan called Isabella into his office. He'd seen the reports, the missing files, the discrepancies. He looked up from his desk with a quiet gravity. You've made one wish, he said. Maybe it's time for another. She met his eyes, steady this time. I wish people could see me for who I really am, not who they think I should be. He leaned back, hands clasped. That's a dangerous wish, Isabella. Truth has a way of burning what's false. I'm not afraid of the fire, she said. He nodded slowly, admiration flickering in his gaze. Then brace yourself, he said. Because the truth doesn't whisper. Outside, the city stretched in morning light. Endless glass, endless eyes. And somewhere between those towers, a girl who'd once been the maid's daughter was about to teach the world what it meant to see clearly. The truth came faster than anyone expected. Within a week, Sterling Innovations was thrown into chaos. An internal audit revealed what Isabella had already known, that her project, and several others, had been stolen and manipulated by Chloe Dane. The data logs didn't lie. Every file bore digital fingerprints that pointed straight to her. It wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. When Jonathan Sterling called an emergency meeting, the entire office buzzed with whispers. Chloe sat at the conference table, pale but defiant, trying to spin her story before the evidence could speak. This is a misunderstanding, she insisted. The files were collaborative. She's exaggerating. Jonathan's expression stayed calm, but his voice carried the weight of leadership. Collaboration doesn't erase contribution, he said, and integrity doesn't hide behind excuses. He pressed a button on his tablet, and the large screen behind him lit up with the audit results, timestamps, commits, and even internal messages where Chloe had bragged about repurposing her intern's work. The room fell silent. One by one, people turned toward Isabella, their earlier skepticism replaced by quiet shame. Jonathan looked at her. You built something extraordinary, Miss Alvarez, he said firmly. And I'm sorry it took a scandal for people to see it. Chloe was escorted out as murmurs filled the air. Isabella didn't gloat, didn't smile. She simply nodded and whispered, Thank you. But the story didn't stay inside those walls. Within days, the news broke. Intern exposes corporate bias at Sterling Innovations. The media spun the story into something larger, something symbolic. Commentators debated race, privilege, and the unseen labor that built empires. Jonathan, to his credit, didn't hide from it. He faced the cameras and said, Isabella Alvarez reminded us all that true innovation starts with equality. Talent doesn't wear a uniform. It wears courage. Invitations for interviews flooded Isabella's inbox, but she turned most of them down. I didn't do this for fame, she told Jonathan. I just wanted my name back, he smiled. You got more than that. You got the world's attention. Weeks later, Sterling Innovations hosted a televised event celebrating youth innovation and diversity. The crowd shimmered with lights and cameras. But this time, Isabella didn't shrink into the background. She stood center stage, wearing a calm confidence that outshone every diamond in the room. When Jonathan introduced her, applause filled the hall. But instead of thanking him, she stepped forward and took the microphone. Before I talk about my project, she began, I want to tell you about my first classroom. It wasn't here. It wasn't fancy. It was a kitchen table, with a mother who worked 2 jobs and still found time to teach me algebra with napkin scribbles. She told me, you'll have to be twice as good to be seen as equal. Her voice softened, but the words carried like thunder. Tonight I want to say, we shouldn't have to fight that hard just to be seen. But until the world changes, we will keep showing up, and we will keep shining. The audience was silent for a beat, then rose in applause that shook the hall. Maria watched from the front row, tears shining like glass. The camera zoomed in on her face, the same woman who had once cleaned floors for this company now sitting proudly under its brightest lights. Afterward, Jonathan approached Isabella backstage. You still have one wish left, he said quietly. She smiled faintly. I already used it, she said. It was in the first 2, I just wanted to be free. Months passed. The story of the maid's daughter who became a symbol of integrity traveled far beyond the city. Universities reached out with scholarship offers. And eventually, she chose MIT. Sterling Innovations established a foundation in her and her mother's honor, the Maria and Isabella Initiative, offering scholarships for underprivileged students in technology. The day before leaving for Boston, Isabella stood outside their apartment with packed bags and a heart full of both pride and disbelief. Maria brushed her cheek, smiling through tears. "You didn't need wishes, mija," she said softly. "You just needed a chance." As the bus pulled away, Isabella pressed her forehead against the glass. The city blurred into sunlight. She looked back one last time, her mother still standing there, framed by the morning glow, head high. Whispering to herself, Isabella said, "The world finally saw her." And through her, they saw me. The bus turned the corner, and the road stretched forward, bright, uncertain, and endless, and somewhere far behind them, in the gleaming office of Sterling Innovations, a new plaque hung in the lobby. They gave her 3 wishes. She only needed one, the courage to make the world see her worth.